in more recent years, your career pivoted away from roles leading departments and organizations into a lot more non-executive work. And would love to understand that transition and maybe, because I think it's such an amazing British staple, children in need, and your stint there. And just talk to us about some of the challenges that you came through and your successes during that time.
Well, thank you. It's always nice to think about one's successes. It beats thinking about one's failures hugely. I think some of my big successes through my career you wouldn't notice, in the sense that making Shell acknowledge they had a brand and use the brand logo even on transport, because their view is don't put it on transport if you have an accident. They'll know it was Shell. And my view was, if you put the logo on, you will think seriously about having that accident. The biggest piece of success, which was visible, was a thing called Perfect Day, which we made actually to advertise the BBC. And probably my shortest brief to anyone. And it was basically, surprise me. I think that was a brief. And they did, the agency did, and it was so wonderful, but you have to stick with them. And we had this thing, and I just fought the battle inside the BBC that said you can't get rid of children in need, because they wanted to. They thought it was down market. They thought, it wasn't really fitting the programme profile of the BBC. And we had to show them that, and this is where great market research comes in, that actually the demographics of children in need were a demographic that the BBC doesn't normally reach, and therefore they ought to keep it within their portfolio. But it was still sort of down there as something you wouldn't talk about certainly on Radio 4, get the Perfect Day and think, we can sell this. Children in need, we can do this. Rang BBC Worldwide, because I am the corporate person, and said, you can surely do us a record deal on this. And they sort of went, we can do K-Tel. Gathered the team together and said, surely someone's got a boyfriend in the music business. Found Chrysalis, and they did it for free.
Fantastic.
So that was £2.7 million went into the children in need coffers, the biggest by then by far. But it was really wonderful watching the power of the brand at that stage, because everybody did it for 50 quid.
Yeah.
Elton John, 50 quid. And the BBC Symphony Orchestra was the most difficult, but still 50 quid. Tammy Wynette drove a Winnebago all across America to New York to record it, 50 quid.
Yeah.
And then they all signed over their royalties.
Amazing.
Which is marvellous. But suddenly, Children in Need was cool, because it had this cool thing that everyone, the producer would bring me up and say, can I have a perfect day for this, please? Can I have a perfect day? So you did begin to understand also that external branding is the best internal communications as well. And that was a learning I took forward. And it seemed to me that once you become successful, once you've learnt a lot, then you can help charities and other organisations.
Yeah.
And that I always talked about the people I mentor is, why do you want to be successful? Maybe just because success is fun, but it's rather lonely.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to be successful because I could do the fun stuff like helping other people.
Yeah.
I could do the mentoring. I could do the children in need as a board director for 18 years or something like that. And that was trying to make them do things like animate Pudsey. I'm going to do this, to animate Pudsey. Now they've animated Pudsey. And then do weird and wonderful things, like my line manager in Revenue and Customs said, oh, Jane, I'm dealing with the Church of England, and they don't seem to want to know what their brand website should do. Can they come and talk to you? And so, you have the fun of 3 hours talking to the Church of England about one website cannot bring people to God, surely to goodness,
Yes.
and talking to smaller charities who just wanted a little bit of help and direction. And then to places like Fair Trade. And Fair Trade is a great brand.
Yeah.
And it's a great idea. Make things better by doing what you normally do. what can beat that? So I went into fair trade, but you see, you learn. And in fair trade, I suddenly became chair because my chair had to recuse himself because we were in a big argument with Sainsbury's. And I learnt that you have to stand your ground. But I also took my learning out of the civil service, which is always have a witness when you're in an argument with a CEO, and always know your governance. Now, governance, they're dull. It's amazing how many times you can win by knowing your governance. And I talked to Mike Coop, and I could talk about it being Mike Coop because he did that awful thing about Asda that finally lost him the job. I don't know if you remember, he was on Sky singing We're in the Money and he didn't realise the camera was on him. And this guy looked at me and said, I am going to ring the Daily Mail and accuse you of fair trade of gun running, drug smuggling, people trafficking. And I looked at him and said, I'm afraid you now have to give me all your evidence. Why? Because you've made an accusation. I am required by the Charity Commission to report it to the Charity Commission and to the Metropolitan Police. And he went, oh, I may have been being illustrative. So, it's remarkable where you find the weapons that help you. And nobody should ever diss knowing the finance, preferably knowing a little bit about audit and certainly knowing governance, because always there'll be a way you can deploy them.